Hi, Van Kaplan here, executive producer of Pittsburgh CLO. Thank you for joining us live on Facebook for Close-Ups, Cocktails and Conversation, where you can enjoy happy hour with some of our most notable alumni and maybe a performance or two. For 75 years, the Pittsburgh CLO has been bringing people together to celebrate musical theater, and we will again soon. All of us at CLO hope that you and your loved ones are safe and managing these difficult times. We look forward to seeing you again at the theater.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? Welcome to Pittsburgh CLO's Close-Ups, Cocktails and Conversation. I hope you have your drink for the end of the work day. I have mine here. My name is Mark Fleischer. I'm the producing director at CLO, and I'm thrilled you're here. I hope everyone watching is safe and healthy. All of us at CLO miss you. Our staff is working from home. I'm streaming this show from my living room here in Pittsburgh, and Sid is in the virtual control room in her home in Pittsburgh. Sid, are you with us? Say hello.
Hi.
There's Sid, so she's doing her part of this as well. Like many of you, we're having Zoom meetings and conference calls, and we're trying to navigate this situation as best we can. So we all can't wait, however, to be together again and celebrate musical theater as audiences and artists. So in the meantime, welcome to our show. This is what we're doing now. We're reaching out to you. We're saying hello. We want to hear from you. This is a behind-the-scenes sort of newsletter, as it were, streaming both on Facebook and YouTube now. And today our special guests are Billy Mason, Olivia O'Connor, and the incomparable Richard Thomas. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. Too many cocktails, I guess, already. If you watched last week with Clay Aiken, thank you so much. We've had over 3,700 views of that, so you can thank you all. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. And finally, you don't just have to watch these conversations. You can participate in the show. If you want to put in some comments or questions for our guests in the comments section of Facebook and YouTube, they'll feed right in, and we'll get them up to let some people answer them. And we'll try to get to your questions. Well, enough about me, although I hope you're doing well, and I'm doing well, and we're going to move forward with the show. Our first guest. When you meet a star or someone who's one of your acting idols, you sure hope that they're not only talented, but they're as generous and have such a great spirit as you hope they do, as they are talented. And that could not have been any, that was the same when I met Richard. When Richard Thomas came to be a part of Christmas Carol in 2018, I was so thrilled to meet him. Such a kind soul and such a very talented actor. And I'm thrilled he agreed to be on our show with us today. Let's welcome Richard Thomas. Hey, Richard.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, live.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Good. And you are in New York today, right?
I am in fabulous Midtown Manhattan. The belly of the beast.
Oh, how's it going? How are you doing? You hanging in there?
So far, so good. I mean, it's me and my wife Georgiana, and we've been here. I was shooting a picture up in Vancouver up until the 5th of March, and then I had to go to New Orleans of all places, and flew back from there on the 12th. And the day I flew out was the day they found the first person who tested positive there. So, and it was a full plane. So I think I was very lucky. I dodged that bullet.
Wow.
But we've been home, and it's going well. As I said before, I haven't yet been asked to sleep in the spare room. So that's all going very nicely.
Well,
and the kids are all well. Our kids are sort of strewn all over the country, and they're all so far doing well.
Good. So they didn't boomerang back or anything. They could take care of it out.
No, they're not. They're not coming back to do their laundry. Not allowed.
Well, good. Well, I'm glad you're well. And we've talked to a few friends from New York and how quiet it is on the street. But
It's crazy. It's like the day the earth stood still. I keep expecting Michael Rennie to walk down 7th Avenue in his silver jumpsuit. It's like a 50s science fiction movie.
And you're a native Manhattanite, right? Do I remember that you said?
Born and raised on the island, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so this you've watched a lot of different things happen on the island, but this has got to be one of the most unique, I bet.
It's certainly the most unique in my life, and I'm astonished at how, I mean, as you all know, we're having terrific leadership right now, so we're very lucky. But I'm always astonished that this behemoth of a city manages to actually continue to function. And it's an astonishing thing, but it's very, there's a lot of tragedy, a lot of sadness, a lot of fear, like everywhere else. And and we're kind of in the center of it all. But I tell you, we've had great stewardship with the governor, and the mayor's been really strong in terms of what we need. So, so far the ship is still sailing.
Good. That's glad to hear. And, it's got to be hard as an actor to not be working right now. And you said you were on a film shoot, and I know you had tours coming up and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's if you're a painter and you've got an easel, you can paint. If you're a writer, you can maybe write. But acting around the house is it's just
you're not.
It's hard on the family. Yeah, it's just walking around the house acting. It just doesn't work.
Some soliloquies from Richard II from your time doing that role, or Hamlet. No,
nobody wants to hear it again.
Turn to your wife and do a Boleslavsky exercise, a Sanford Meisner exercise.
Yeah. She wasn't up for theater games last night. She was like, shut up and just let's watch Netflix. So.
Well, good. Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of the shows. We were lucky in Pittsburgh to have you come do Ebenezer Scrooge. It was really great, and chat a little bit. I know we have a few pictures of you playing Scrooge. Let's see if there's some. Yep, there he is with his wig and all the company. Scrooge. That's you. Oh, there he is with little Tiny Tim at the end of this is the joyous Scrooge. I don't know if we have anything of you being the mean Scrooge, but you stepped into Pittsburgh, and we're not an easy thing to step into. 8 days of rehearsal and
wow.
And I have to say again, and we'll go to some of my geeky fandom later, but when you agreed to do the show, I was so touched and so thrilled that you wanted to take on this literature role. But talk a little bit about your time in Pittsburgh, which I know pretty much was spent in your room learning the lines in 8 days.
Well, the material, first of all, right, when because there's all kinds of ways that people do this story. There's all different kinds of adaptations and points of view about it. But when I got this one, yours, and read it, and it was and the speeches, the language, the book of it, hewed so closely to the music and the wit and the wonderful quality of Dickens, that it was like just accepting a role in a wonderfully written play. And so many of those lines, it was a lot to learn very quickly, but so many of those speeches were already sort of in my ear in one way or another from the movies I'd watch or from reading it over and over again. So the learning was not that difficult, but 8 8 days. And of course, when you arrive in the rehearsal room and that fantastic company that you all have of men and women who have worked there for years and have played the roles, they're so seasoned and they have such, it's the best situation you could possibly step into, because they're gonna tell you, no, move over here, no, don't go, no, stay seated, say okay, now you can get up, right now they're not gonna let you fall into the pit, but there is a feeling when they look at you when you walk in this kind of a human sacrifice that's about to take place.
You're talking about Jeff Howell and Tim Hartman.
Yeah, maybe, but it's just those. They were all so wonderfully welcoming, and I really felt like after a couple of days that I could do it, and that's because of what you all have created there in terms of a company of players that are so they're right on it. And I mean, they do these crazy schedules all the time, so they're so adept, but they were so welcoming and so loving, and I just had the most wonderful time.
Oh, that's great. No, and I mean, give credit, as you said, David Bell's script, and it is at the heart of that novella. And you're right, those lines like 3 Coles, Mr., 5 Coles, Mr. Cratchit, or all those lines that come out, and it is great. But it was thrilling to have you there, and you also all the school children. Did you get to explore Pittsburgh at all much, or did we pretty much keep you so busy?
You pretty much kept me busy. I mean, I got to the little downtown Christmas market, which I loved, and because I'm a big Christmas baby, so I was. It meant a lot to have a Christmassy place to go to. But I pretty much stayed close because you have the daytime matinees, and we have this. Most actors, they're lying if they tell you this isn't true, have a horror of student matinees.
At 10 a.m.
Well, the 11 a.m. Hamlet is no actor's favorite moment in the theater, um, but so I was sort of prepared. Okay, you're going to do these early shows. You're going to have to get to the theater much earlier than normally.
Right.
Acting is a nocturnal profession. You're going to
Right.
be asked to do it in the morning.
Right.
But then I got there, it was unlike any other experience with young people I've ever had. The cheers and the feeling of excitement, the responses, it was just the most extraordinary thing. So I wouldn't trade it for the world, and it really changed my whole point of view about getting to pretty much about getting to the theater at 10 in the morning to do a show.
Yeah, and I know you were so generous with your time because you flew out, I think, on Christmas Eve to go to your family. So you got to be the guy arriving like in the TV commercial, right?
I did. I was like Daddy Walton on the Homecoming, coming home just in time.
Well, good. Well, thanks for that. I wanted to, talk a little bit about your background because we talked a little while you're here, but I was fascinated to learn, about your parents being ballet dancers and not necessarily from Manhattan, from Kentucky, right? Is that where your father's from? As I remember correctly?
My dad is Billy Elliot. I mean, he was raised in a mining town in eastern Kentucky in the mountains,
right.
And in a small town there. And he ended up being a ballet dancer. He came first to Los Angeles, and he got to New York, and he started dancing in Broadway shows. He kissed, $1 Billion Baby and
right.
Kiss Me Kate and those original. He was a gypsy,
right.
And then my mom was actually from Denver, Colorado, and she studied and became a dancer. And she studied actually in London. Her folks lived in London right up and through the Blitz, and then came home.
Oh.
And then she began dancing for ballet theater, and they met as dancers with Alicia Alonso's company in Havana, and they were married in Havana. And then they went back home to have me, and then back to Cuba. And then when they came back to New York after leaving that company, they joined Balanchine's company and were with that company for years during those great years in the 50s.
Right.
And then they opened a school, and then they opened a wonderful school in the Upper West Side. So that was my childhood world. But at the same time, starting as a boy, it was 1958. So I was 7, starting. It was my first Broadway. My first equity job was in a Broadway show called Sunrise at Campobello, where I played John Roosevelt, the youngest of the Roosevelt family. And so I had done a season of summer stock before that, but that was my first equity job. So I became a New York theater brat, and there was all that live television. In New York at that time, that was so I was doing theater and live TV in New York, and that's sort of where I cut my teeth. And meanwhile, my home life was all about the dance world. So it was an interesting background.
So were you a dancer yourself? Did you do the ballet?
No, I started studying, at my parents' school when I was an adolescent, and it was enormously helpful for me. It's a wonderful thing for an actor to have some sort of physical work. It certainly stood me in good stead doing classics. But I was never in the running to be a dancer because I can't keep my mouth shut, and the idea of mime, the idea of not speaking on the stage is I don't think I could possibly handle it. I'm a text person. So
right. And kind of along that way, we talked about you growing up in Manhattan, which is the things you've seen since the early 50s to now, and the change of the city, but the other thing I found fascinating, and this is that you also spent your summers on a farm.
I did.
That contrast, that's interesting. That contrast, the city life and then the farm, must have been very informative.
It was great. I was a New York theater brat in the school year, and then in the summer I went to my dad's folks' farm in eastern Kentucky, which was right outside of the town where he was raised and born. And they had a lovely farm there, and so with horses and all the everything you'd want, everything a kid would want. And I spent just almost all of my summers of my childhood and early youth and my youth there. So in a way, I had there was a lot of nature and a lot of that wonderful sort of lazy country summertime stuff in my life. But more importantly, when it came to John Boy, and I had this I had this role that I was offered to play this country boy in Virginia. I mean, I could draw on all those childhood experiences and the sound and the feeling of my family, that part of my family. So it served me beautifully, and also they're incredibly happy, idyllic memories of
I bet.
my childhood.
Yeah.
Excuse me for coughing.
No,
Don't worry.
no, I think that's interesting.
Should I get my mask?
No, I don't know. At least we're on the internet now, so we're okay.
Exactly.
We're distanced by more than 6 feet, I believe, at this point.
But I got to ask you something. All
yeah.
these things that we're doing, all the Zooming and talking and everybody, isn't it time for a little virtual distancing as well? I mean,
I know.
More contact with people since I've been alone in my apartment than I normally do at all.
Well, I know I feel that way, at least on the weekends, because we spend our day, we have a regular staff meeting at 10 o'clock to go through what we're doing, and I keep up. And by the time we hit the evening, I am ready to close the laptop. And it's even hard, Holly and I, it's even hard to watch television at some point. It's been so much screen time that we've been playing Scrabble and games because or work in the yard. And then on the weekend, it really becomes, I need to be in the yard or out taking a hike in the woods or something. At least we're still able to do that. But you're right.
And the thing about apartment living is so weird because we don't have that. So fortunately, the place is big enough to move around in and not feel claustrophobic. We're very blessed in that way. But we're keeping because being an actor at a certain age, I'm keeping as much to the backstage, into the wings as possible.
Yes, I agree. So tell me a little bit about your career. Obviously, there's roles you're really known for. I have a collage of here with some of the ones they're going to put up. We have we've got Gad, David Robinson, John Boy, of course. I mean, you're known for those, but I think the thing that always spoke to me is that I like to think maybe it's the snobbery in me that I have a very different opinion of you because of my time watching you on the stage, from Race, which I thought that was brilliant casting because of your John Boy background.
It was good, wasn't it? Yeah,
right.
I was very
Mamet. To those who don't know the show, it's about a man who's accused of sexual harassment. Kerry Washington. It was a brilliant cast.
Yeah, and it was my only chance to be in a Mamet play. I couldn't believe it. It was like this. If ever there was a playwright I didn't think I was going to get cast in, it would be Dave Mamet. But when that came along, I thought, this is so great.
Right, and then I saw you 12 Angry Men, on the tour, directed by Scott Ellis, who we both know and have in common, who went to my graduate school, and also Little Foxes, which were nominated for a Tony. But I'm going to geek out a moment on a really specific show that means a lot to me. We'll throw it up. Throw up the picture. All right. So 5th of July by Lanford Wilson. And I'll tell you why this means so much to me. Okay, show the picture. There I am playing Ken Talley in the lower right corner at college.
Goodness. So you are.
Yes, a very young me that used to act. Huh? I used to talk. But that role, that show, for those who don't know, the show is about a paraplegic Vietnamese Vietnam War veteran who's returned home to decide what to do with the family farm. What is you in farms? I guess you have a lot of farm roles. But he's a paraplegic. I have to ask the question because those who know me know how darn fidgety I am. The hardest thing I had to do in that show was sit still as if my legs didn't work for 2 hours. Is that something you can do from your ballet training? Because it was a nightmare.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, for me, the ultimate was when I did a tour of a play called Whose Life Is It Anyway, which is where I literally was in bed and couldn't move anything with my head. That was a challenge. But 5th of July was such an important event for me. First of all, it's Lanford Wilson at his most glorious. The writing, the Talley trilogy is so fabulous. Talley's Folly, 5th of July, A Tale Told, which then became Talley and Son. I think. Yeah, they're magnificent plays, and Lanford was our great, in my opinion, just our great. He inherited the Chekhovian mantle so perfectly, and that play was very important to me because I had not been in New York. I had not been on stage in New York for many, many years. From the time the last show I think I did in New York before I went to LA and started working. I didn't go to LA. I was always living in New York. I was working in Los Angeles. I was making movies. Was maybe Edward Albee's Everything in the Garden. I'm not sure exactly, but there was a long hiatus So in the meantime, I had done a lot of theater in Los Angeles, but coming back to New York, back to Broadway, after having been successful in the series in the Waltons, you know, are they going to treat me? Am I going to get welcomed home? Am I going to be welcome to come back? Which is because this is where I come from, and this is where I grew up, and the Broadway theater is where I learned how to act. Or is it going to be like this television star is coming back and thinks he can get on Broadway and start working? Fortunately, you know, it went very well for me, and it was my welcome home card and my welcome home party for New York, and that was one of the reasons it meant so much.
Well, walking in, I mean, coming from an ensemble show like the Waltons and then walking into another ensemble script must have been, I mean, again, it's such a, I mean, I'm obviously biased for that show, and not just because I did it, but just such an amazing, like I said, it's very Chekhovian, the multi-generations, where it was about that time in the 60s, at the end of the 60s, and even, you know, having, you know, Jeff Daniels and that cast, and that even that relationship of those two men being on stage, and
I know, so it was very challenging for some people.
Yeah, it was. Looking back, it doesn't seem like it's anything, but at its time was really great. And I know I also saw the PBS. They filmed it for great performances. I think someone, you can hunt that down if you want to see Richard in the role and see. What
that's available. That's available. We did it for Showtime, and that was, it was shown on Showtime and PBS. The PBS version is a little bit cleaned up in terms of the language. If you can find the Showtime version, it's a little bit more of the originally profane Lanford.
Right. And so that's good. Thank you. I've always wanted to know more about your time on that show.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. I loved that whole company. I loved walking into that company. Marshall Mason had done such a magnificent job, but of course it was circle rep. And like coming to you guys, I walked into a family. And all I had to do was fit in with the family, and it worked. It just, and ensemble plays are really the most delightful experiences of all anyway.
And you were taking over a role. So did you get the chance to sort of bring yourself to it and do new things? It was a new approach to the role, if I remember reading the reviews.
I don't know. I didn't attempt any kind of a new approach. I mean, I just came to do the play.
You did what you do.
I did the play. I mean, the thing about it is you can't help but be different, because all you can bring to any job really is yourself. So, and that's going to be intrinsically different. I mean, you know, Chris Reed was like 3 feet taller than me anyway, so
he was seated the whole time.
But you know, it was an opportunity for me to just recreate a part on Broadway without trying to recreate anything. I just showed up and gave what I knew and gave what I had, and it was a blessing for me.
Well, I mean, again, I think it's so great. I mean, so many people, and you know this because you work in the field, but know people for like a one role, but you're a working actor. You've had this great, since age 7, it sounds like, the ability to sort of take on different roles and different things. You've been LA, and now you've settled back in New York to do stage work. I think you just finished doing a show up at Lincoln Center, right? Did I remember that earlier this year?
Yeah, we just did the second part of Robert Schenken's LBJ diptych, Great Society, with Brian Cox, and I played Hubert Humphrey, the Happy Warrior.
The Happy Warrior. Oh, that's good. Well, before I ask some more questions, those of you who are out in our viewing audience, if you have questions for Richard, of course, we can get some of those up on the screen if there's any, or we'll continue our conversations. Any chance to talk to Richard is a great chance for me to talk about that. What do you have coming up next? Anything lined up, or is it all in flux for you now?
I'm trying to get a Whole Foods order in, actually.
Well, you know, priorities.
That's
do you do it next in character?
No. Yeah. Well, yes, I pick a character off the shelf and I decide to do it. No, you have to do it online, so you can't do it in character. But I'm thinking of giving my Prospero tomorrow in the living room. I was working on a really exciting Netflix picture with Sandra Bullock, and that we were shooting in Vancouver, and that got put on hold like everything else. We're almost done, but we're not quite finished. So whenever things go up, shooting wise. We'll finish
Right.
that, and that may be a little bit earlier than other things, simply because it's not a large. It's not, it's large-ish, but it's not a large
Right.
group of people. It can be a more controlled environment. As far as shows are concerned, as far as theater is concerned, I think we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
We just it's a wait and see thing. I do have on my schedule something that I'm completely thrilled about, which is the national tour of To Kill a Mockingbird, which was supposed to start performances in early September.
Right.
And it's a 2-year tour, and wonderful Pittsburgh is on the route.
Yep.
But as to when, and I know that they're still working very hard to make that happen. It just all depends on how things go and when it will start and where it will start.
Right.
But I'm hoping for the best, because that's one I'm really excited about doing. I'm very, very excited. Yeah, it's a thrilling project, and like I say, I have no inside information about how it will go, but I know that there's a will to do it out there, so we'll get it done.
Great. Well, so we're coming to a segment we're calling Thank You 5. Thank you, 5. Right. Those who say, this is for those who are watching. When the stage manager says 5 minutes to places, usually you hear shouting out from the room, Thank you, 5. So this tells you your 5-minute warnings. We have 5 questions that we've got in terms of asking you. So, Richard, what is your dream role that you haven't gotten yet to play?
Well, I don't really have dream roles, but I need to get back to Shakespeare. I mean, the last Shakespeare I did was for Barry Edelstein at the Globe, and I did an Iago for him, and that's exciting. And I want to get to Lear, and that's sort of where I'm, at a certain point. And I'd like to get to Prospero maybe before that, but I don't know how that's going to go. So those are out there for me. Right. And I adore Chekhov. I love an opportunity. Sadly, there won't be any more plays by my beloved Terrence McNally, who I've worked for many times and whose work was such a joy to play. But those 2 parts. Right. I mean, I'm not alone. Every actor wants to play them. So,
we'll see what we can do.
Get in line.
If it's a musical, we could do it for you. But the musical Lear.
Of Lear would be
exclamation
fantastic.
Point. Lear exclamation point.
Exactly. Absolutely. Oh, I think that's a great idea.
Where did your love of classics? Because everything you listed are things, I know I do work in the musical, but I came from a world of straight plays as well. But the classics, where did that love? Your parents were dancers, but where did the love of language and Shakespeare and Chekhov?
Well, I was a reader from the time I was very, very small. And I did my first Shakespeare at the Stratford, Connecticut Festival, which is gone lo these many years, in which I played I was 13, I think, one of the princes in the tower and Richard III. And I was so completely I don't know what happened with Shakespeare. It absorbed me in a way that was completely unexpected. It's at that age. So right after that, I couldn't stop reading Shakespeare, and I couldn't stop. I mean, my head went right into those texts, and so he's always been with me, right. And so important. But there's a connection a little bit between growing up in a world of ballet, where there is a connection to classics, the great ballet classics, and in conjunction with that, great pieces of music, classical pieces of music. And so sort of growing up in a household where there was a feeling of continuity with classical works, both dance classics and musical classics, I think it predisposed me to an appreciation of different styles and different periods and sort of classical stories, if you will, so that I was, I think, very open to that. And I kind of had a natural affinity for it because of, how I grew up. That's all I can think of, really.
Yeah, that's great. And all right, so question 2 is, do you have a role you'd like to revive? Do you wish you could go back and relive?
Well, I may not be the only actor who had this experience, but like the morning after I gave my last Hamlet performance at
Mm-hmm.
Hartford, the morning after I gave my last performance, all I could think of was all the much better ways I could have done it in all the different ways, and that I just wanted to do it again as soon as possible. I never got to, but in America we don't get we're lucky we get to play these roles once, maybe twice, but for instance, in England, where actors give 3 or 4 Hamlets, or in
Right.
the course of their lives, many different, you don't have the opportunity so much to revisit these parts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't really think of a role I'd love to revisit, to reinvestigate, other than that all those great classics, because they bear so much.
Mm-hmm.
You never get to the bottom of them.
Right.
And there's always something you haven't explored. When you make a set of choices as an actor in a part, you go down a particular street,
Mm-hmm.
but there are many other streets you can go down with all of these great roles in these plays. And so I always think about that. I think of all the classical roles I played, I always think, well, I could have gone that way. I could have gone that way. I could have gone that way. And of course, you like to do everything better than you did it
Right.
before, but this is the way it is.
Yeah. All right. So the third one, which is kind of funny.
That's a long way of not answering your question.
Well, you also played a certain role for 5 years, and you've done some of those kind of things too. So, and they made you go back for a few reunion specials, but
we did. I didn't like the reunions very much. I love the show. I love the Waltons. I love doing it. I love the people. I love the role. I love the whole experience. And of course, it gave me the kind of opportunities that every actor should be able to have, but very few of us do. So I have enormous gratitude about that. But in a funny kind of way, the reunions, although they were fun for us to do, and people enjoyed sort of, tuning in to see how old and fat everybody got, I think, maybe. But, spend a little more time with the family you love. Right. Nevertheless, they lost that sense of memory, that feeling of looking back, the nostalgic aspect that the show had as a series, which I think was at its heart. So they were a little different in tone, I thought.
Yeah. So knowing what we did to you when you came to be Scrooge in terms of dressing room, this one's kind of funny to ask because Richard had to share it with 3 guys. Anyway, what's your dressing room essentials? What must you have in your dressing room?
First of all, the one thing I learned in Pittsburgh in that dressing room is what happens in that dressing room stays in that dressing room. It's believe me, that room is not for the faint of heart. But I never had a better time in a dressing room. I'll tell you that. Dressing room essentials for me: cup of tea, my little Buddha on my dressing table, and whatever particular little fetish might feel related to this particular piece of work, or there wasn't a whole lot of room in that dressing room for everybody to get a lot of their usual stuff. But I like to keep it as simple as possible, and I like it very orderly. A lot of actors have a dressing room thing where they like to come in and just throw their stuff down, and it's always a mess and things accumulate, and it's great because everybody's got their own. It's a ritual. It's a sacred space, and everybody's entitled to maintain it the way they want. But for me, it's always been very kind of very orderly and with as little clutter as possible, which is weird because I'm normally a very cluttered person, but not in my dressing space. And and a lot of some small animal sacrifices before opening night, usually.
Actors are mystical creatures, I understand. And then what are you listening for? What are you listening to or watching to help you get through this challenging time? What's been your sort of salvation in the midst of this as you've been hunkering down? Well,
my salvation has unquestionably been my wife, Georgiana. She's the sanitizer in chief. It's the cleanest. It's the cleanest place I've ever been, and I'm the shopper in chief. So I'll get the food orders in. I'll keep us fed. She'll keep us alive.
Good.
And it's a really good combination. And we make our dinner and we take it to bed and we watch our shows that we like, and different kinds, different ones. Sometimes old movies, sometimes shows that we like on that are streaming, and then when we turn the screen off, we lie side by side and read until and we meditate during the day, and so it's been a wonderful opportunity to be together. I mean, we're kind of joined at the hip anyway,
right.
But I'm not a daytime TV watcher. And then of course, there's the news, because there's no horror movie available on television that's not as terrifying, and for many different reasons, as the news. So we do that, but we try not to OD on it and make ourselves crazy. But we want to know what's going on, and I read the Times every morning, the New York Times, and basically we play it by ear. Well, what's amazing is how much, don't you find this? How much there is to do when you have nothing to do. It's like, how did that happen?
Yes.
Forced isolation. We're home the whole day. Don't have to go anywhere. Don't have to be anywhere. There's like, no, I can't do it right now. I got to call you. No, I don't. 20 minutes. No, I can't call you in 20 minutes. I got a Zumba class. I can't.
Right. I was laughing.
Crazy.
I was laughing, but just to say, we had some technology issues before when you were back and forth, and I said, "Hey, if you want to check this out," he goes, "I can't. I'm busy for 45 minutes." And part of me was like, "What are you doing?"
I know. My favorite.
I'm stuck in traffic.
When you call somebody on the phone and they don't answer,
yes.
like they're home.
All right, last question, then we'll let you go. First place you'll go once you're allowed to gather in public?
Central Park, which is a block away, and Georgie and I love walking in the park and love being together there, and especially because it's springtime now. We ventured out a little bit, but when we did, there were still too many people for their own good out there. So we're keeping it home. But the park will be important. But what I look most forward to when people are able to be together is seeing our kids again, obviously, because it's very weird not to be with them.
Yeah, I know. From family being separated and not talking has been a really hard time. I mean, at least we have the technology we have, which I'm grateful for. When
isn't it wonderful?
I thought of like my grandparents during World War II and couldn't, they got letters, right? It's
That's right.
Interesting. So, well, Richard, I first of all hope you and your wife continue your health and safety and taking a time. Thank you for the time and for our crowd and audiences. And we look forward to seeing you back in Pittsburgh as Atticus, we hope, and hopefully maybe back at CLO for Lear the musical if we can figure out how to make that happen.
And never too old for another Scrooge.
We'll get you back for that.
I had a wonderful time in Pittsburgh.
Oh, thank you.
And being a Christmas baby, it was like having Christmas 3 times a day, and I loved it, and I loved the company, and I loved the whole experience of being there. So it's a fond memory, and hopefully one day it'll be more than that.
I would love nothing more than have you back in Pittsburgh. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
Everybody say thanks to
you.
Richard, and have a good night. Enjoy your evening. Thank you. Bye. Well, that was fun, and as time goes by, I'm thrilled to have had Richard. I hope you guys learned a lot and got some interesting tidbits behind the scenes. Now, I'm going to move a little closer to home and introduce one of my very special colleagues at work, Olivia O'Connor, our manager of new work development. We'll bring her on because we're going to talk a little about some of the things she does and some of the projects she has happening. So let's bring Olivia in.
Hi.
Hey, were you back? Cheers.
I brought wine. I don't have any liquor in my house, but I brought wine.
My little cocktail. I just finally got wine delivered to me, so I had to join a wine club to get stuff. So were you backstage watching our interview? I
was.
Isn't that great?
It's so nice to see Richard. Yeah, that was a great conversation.
Richard's very sweet. So Olivia is our manager of new work development. So why don't you, we're going to do the little who are you? And you're from the Pittsburgh region originally, and we just coaxed you back, right? Is that how that happened?
Yeah, I grew up in South Butler and went to school here too. So I'm a CMU grad. And then I was in New York for a few years working at Roundabout Theater Company. And I came back in 2017 for this.
To us.
Yes.
To us.
Yes.
We recruited you back to the city from New York. And your responsibilities are new work. So talk a little bit about what you do and in a normal time, probably before, and then we'll go to what you're doing in this time.
Yeah, so in a normal time, I'm reading script submissions for our New Works program, especially for our Spark Festival and New Musicals Weekend, which are kind of the 2 in-house development opportunities that we do at CLO. So reading script submissions, reaching out to writers to encourage them to submit, And we also have a great team of script readers locally, so we can chat about shows and I'm not just reading them in a vacuum.
Right.
And I also do a lot of casting stuff with CLO. So if you're an actor, you've probably seen me at auditions for us at some point in time, and work generally with productions as a dramaturg. So if we're doing a world premiere production, which we have done 3 now. Yeah, we're supposed to be 4 by this point in time. 3 soon to be 4 world premiere productions. I'm also working on those as a dramaturg.
We have a couple pictures just because we figured we have some images of her at work. Let's see here. Oh, there she is leading a talk back with a writer. Yes, with Dave Lipton, who's a writer of Perfect Mate we've been developing. And then we have another one, I think, as well. Just Olivia giving notes in, standing and looking as a dramaturg. So,
yes.
And we'll probably have you back on as we get closer to Untitled, because Untitled is really special. And we'll talk about that in a second, but is about a dramaturg. So I may want to have you on to talk a little bit, what's a dramaturg? This new word that for a lot of people, and I know it was for me when I went to school, but we'll talk about that. But for now, we've shifted your job a little bit. Not much. You're still doing new works and you're still talking to writers. And we've launched your own show, right? Which launched the same, you were the guinea pig, you went before I did. Spark the Conversation. Talk a little bit about what Spark the Conversation, you can tell how it's different from this show or what you're trying to do with your show.
Sure. So every Tuesday at 3, I'm in the same spot. It's like I never leave. This is my little box that I live in now. And we chat with alums from our New Musicals initiative. So folks who have worked on those festivals with us or done a world premiere with us. 2 weeks ago, we chatted with Kristen and Kevin, the writing team of Up and Away, which was our featured world premiere during Spark. Last week, we chatted with Megan and Sarah, the writing team of These Girls Have Demons, which is a show we've done several bits of development with here in Pittsburgh. And this coming week, we'll be chatting with the team from Untitled, writer-composer Matt Schatz, director Reg Douglas. And it's a kind of conversation around process, around the history of the show that had involvement with CLO, as well as other projects that people are working on, how they are adapting to working during this strange time. We also do a little show and tell segment since we're in people's houses. So we've seen some crafts. We've seen a song performance. We've seen lots of animals. I'm excited to see what happens on Tuesday. And then we also do Thank You 5, and we're doing Thank You 5 as a list on Tuesday. So we do lists of 5. But it's really fun. It's a 30-minute live stream. It's a good time for a coffee break in your workday when you're feeling that not productive 3 p.m. lull. You can come join us on Facebook and YouTube and say hello.
It was a great, with Megan and Sarah, was a great conversation, and we got to hear sort of what they've been watching and sort of their and some of the crafts they've been doing. And so you're getting in there and sort of behind this. I'm fascinated how these people we have that are so talented have other talents.
Yes, I know really, they've been knitting, and Megan made those amazing paper pop-up cards. Yeah, they have other careers in crafts for sure.
And have you been reading a lot of scripts to help us find next musicals?
I have been reading a lot of scripts. I've been reading a lot of scripts both for us and for other conferences and development opportunities. So I'm on NAMP's, National Alliance of Musical Theater Selection Committee. So that deadline is tomorrow. I've got a couple more scripts.
Oh, wow.
And Musical Theater Factory as well, which a director that we've worked with, May Anteo, is in charge of MTF. So I'm a reader for them as well. So I've been doing lots and lots of reading in the past month.
That's great. And, one of the things, Olivia is so creative. One of the things we talked about when we were trying to figure out what was going to be our online presence or what we were going to do was I felt that there were a lot of consumer things where we were watching or seeing someone perform or like this show, watching an interview. And so we charged Olivia with finding something more interactive. And she came up with this really great project that I wanted to talk about because we're just kicked it off called the Google Doc Musical. So talk about this because there's the logo that Steph created for us. It's fun. The Google Doc Musical. Talk about the idea behind it, how anyone who's watching can help us write a new musical.
Yes, and please do. So yes, Google Doc Musical. We are writing a 5-actor musical on Google Docs, live in real time in an open document. So anyone can watch what's happening. And anyone is also welcome to become a book writer or lyricist or composer and work on it. So right now, if you go to our Facebook page, we're taking suggestions for certain elements of the show, like its title, setting, epigraph, character names, things like that. So you can submit options. Tomorrow, we're going to vote on options. And then once we have some of those guidelines in place, on Monday, the Google Doc will open. So anyone can go see it. And we're going to be writing one section of the musical each week. We've kind of simplified structure as much as we can down to 4 weeks of writing. And if you're interested in contributing as a writer, you can request editing access to the document, and then you can go in and write. And you can write a scene, you can write lyrics. We're asking folks to keep it to about half a page each week. So it's kind of like a game of telephone. It's kind of like an improv exercise. So a friend in the science field compared it to, he said it was an open source musical, which I think is a great way to think about it too. So our goal is to have a lot of different voices and perspectives. And then at the end, hopefully have a long list of contributors. We're working on how we might be able to share the show down the line when we're able to gather again. And if you're interested in composing, we're going to wait until we have a full libretto and see how many songs we have, what kind of lyrics we have. Right. And if you're interested in composing, you can email me directly. My email is online, and let me know. And we're going to be sending out songs to individual composers. So the goal is just to create something as a community. I think it's going to be chaos. I hope it's chaos. And we'll find out what happens and what happens in the show too.
So it reminds me of, remember those books as children where you could flip the head, look different than the body, look different than like, that's the sort of feeling I almost get that. And that idea that I could go in and go, he's picked up this line about this, and I'm going to write the next line that rhymes about that.
Exactly.
But I also think it's neat that you can log in or keep it open on your desktop and watch someone write a play. Like you can actually see what's being, look, someone logged in and they're writing. So I think it's sort of a neat idea. And I look forward to really seeing the chaos that comes out of it. So as it goes forward. So right now we're doing the poll for titles and epigraph and settings and things like that. And it's going to be 5 actors or 5 characters, right? Like
I guess, that's a good question. We'll find out. I think we said 5 actors because most of our New York's initiatives developed here in Pittsburgh have 5 actors. But we have done a decent amount of double casting. So that's an interesting question. We'll see what kind of names come in, and then maybe we'll decide from there.
As I said, we have produced a lot of shows at the Cabaret that are 3 lead actors and 2 actors that become an entire chorus or ensemble. So,
right, I know, it's true. For the sake of the insanity that might ensue, we might just keep it to 5 characters.
As we've worked, it's funny, as we've worked on, this is not against any of the shows that have been that multi-character, but I've been interested to see when we were actually about to get to the one that's mostly someone plays the same character the whole time. What happens if we've had a lot of shows that are sort of the multi-character, but it'd be interesting some point as we move through these and we develop more 5-character musicals, the ones that really are about 5 characters.
For sure.
I think it'll be an interesting angle. So, thank you. And so your show's next week at 3 on YouTube and Facebook, and you have Matt and Reg to talk about Untitled, which we've just announced new dates for October 29th to November 29th. And I look forward to seeing that. So thanks for coming on and being my guest.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Enjoy your cocktails. We'll see you later.
Thanks. Bye, Mark.
All right. And speaking of actors who have done multiple roles in one show, my next guest is Billy Mason. Billy has performed for Pittsburgh CLO on the summer season as Piragua in The Heights. Hey, there's a picture of Billy on the stage. What an amazing voice. And he also was in The Toxic Avenger at the Cabaret, where, there he is with Quinn Patrick Shannon and Caroline Nicolaian. And he's also been in Christmas Carol. So it's my pleasure to welcome as our final guest for the Cabaret moment, Billy Mason.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey. A toast to you, my friend. How are you? So good to see you.
I'm great. Good to see you too.
And you're in New York as well, right?
Yes, up here in Washington Heights, right next to the GWB, having a good time.
It's just like you're living in the Heights.
Literally, actually, if you look out the one window, it is the set for In the Heights. So
is it?
Place. That's gorgeous. Yes.
Oh, excellent. So, and that movie's coming out, and so you were in the Heights for us, which is another very special show in my memory of CLO. Just what an amazing company, and working with Michael and all them. And that was your first main stage show with us on the main stage?
No. I did Aida and Pacific before that.
That's right. I forgot you were in those. But so talk a little about, because Piragua and being a part of that show, and that was about as Hamilton had really hit. So to go back and visit that first show, what was it like being in that show that was put up again in 8 days?
Honestly, it was one of the most, and I think anybody in the cast will say this, it was one of the most magical family moments I've ever had in theater. Because basically you get 5 days before designer run. And we had that show down, choreographed, and in the corners you could see us learning new choreography that we hadn't learned yet, and just coming together as a cast. And honestly, every moment of that show was just so incredible. And I don't think I've had a better time in a process or on stage than that.
And it was one of those shows that we loved. And it's one of those where, as a theater producer or a theater person putting it on stage and picture, like, okay, what is this audience going to think? But what was that feeling for you when you guys first came out and did the show?
So the first show, when we finished 96,000 and the audience clapped for like an encore length, some people stood in that 3,000 seat theater, and we just stood there and we were sweating and just went, oh yeah. And honestly, it's nothing matches that. So yeah,
it's a great show. I mean, I remember sending people to it in New York when it came out, because it really, almost like what Richard Thomas was talking about Chekhovian and family and multi-generational. I mean, I think that's something we don't see a lot. And Lynn was, obviously one of his first shows. So, but that's it. But, one of the things, I'd seen that stuff, but what's really good that you do is comedy, because you have this great voice that we're going to hear later. We're going to convince you to sing. But the Toxic Avenger, which we brought you in to play the character of
Black Dude.
But it wasn't just one. How many different roles did you play? Do you remember?
I believe it was 15 when we broke it down.
15 different roles with costume changes, men, women. Oh, we got B-roll. Look, there he is. Nice dress and wig.
Yes.
You can comment if you want. It's like the director's cut.
I absolutely love everything about this. Those Ugg boots, I wish I still had them.
Yeah. And
there's me playing the one serious character in the show.
Yeah. Oh, there's the dresses.
Oh, yes. Now that dress was everything. That's the dress I actually learned that I could not walk in heels. I put the heels on for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is not my bag. I don't know what I'm doing here. But we had a good time learning.
I forgot how fun this show was.
Oh, it's so fun.
And crazy, and out in the left field. I mean, and we also moved the cabaret around for that once you guys were running through the whole thing. And you had like a dresser back. You were like, change.
Oh, if it had been for Kelly backstage, there would have not been a show. I mean, honestly, Kelly kept that show together, and it was great.
We'll give a full shout out to Kelly Haywood, our dresser for that, who also is one of the assistant stage managers in the summer. And you get back and forth to Pittsburgh quite often. Still, you have family here. You grew up outside of Pittsburgh, though. If I remember. Yes,
I grew up in Greensburg, and I went to Greensburg-Salem High School, where I did my freshman year. I did Anything Goes. And I loved it. And I decided I wanted to start taking tap classes after that. So I took 2 weeks of tap lessons and had the hubris to go audition for a show downtown in Pittsburgh. And I booked it.
Oh.
And had to explain that I was only 16 and they still let me in the show. And that was I was doing Crazy for You with Jeff Shade, who had just come off the Broadway company and was staging it for what at the time was Gargaro Productions. And that's how it all started. And here I am.
You've been with us. And you joined Christmas Carol last year.
I did for the first time.
Not with Richard. You did it with Mark Jacoby, who was an amazing Scrooge in his own right. Absolutely. What was it like for you stepping into that company?
So I walked in, the very first person that really kind of shared that love with me, because I knew basically everyone in the room. Right. But Lisa Ann Goldsmith says, "Don't worry, we'll shove with love." And honestly, that's the best way to describe it, because that whole first day I was like, I don't know what I'm standing on. I don't know what this is. I don't know where I'm going. But
there's tape on the floor to help you out. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those who don't know, have not been in a rehearsal process, they work in a flat floor studio, and we tape out what the set is. But you have no idea if this tape you're crossing is 10 feet tall, 2 feet tall, down.
And you find out quickly when you get
out when you get to the set, because I always laugh, like, oh, they fell off. I'm like, no, they'll learn when they get to the theater. Oh, did you fall?
I fell off.
I don't want to know that. I don't need to know that. But eventually you found your way. You didn't have to be shoved with love anymore, and you got to the show. So, well, that's great. So what are you doing to keep yourself busy at this crazy time?
I guess. The first week was kind of interesting because there was a lot of, Netflix watching and Hulu watching and Disney Plus watching and so many other things. And then I got tired of TV, and I think I watched all of Netflix. So I've started baking, started working on projects. I've been collaborating with some people in Pittsburgh, like Montez Freeland, talking to some people here in New York that are friends of mine, just getting new projects going. Right. Last week I did a benefit concert for the Strand Theater, which is another theater in Pittsburgh. And I just, do anything I can to keep busy, really.
Good. Well, I convinced you to share a song with us, right? Yes. And what have you picked, and explain why this mattered to you? You said you wanted to sing something really heartfelt.
Yes. So I am a Disney fan. So I wanted to sing something from the Disney canon. And a few weeks ago, I saw sort of a parody of this song, referring to us being all locked inside. But one of my best friends played this role about 3 years ago, and in one of the most beautiful productions of Hunchback of Notre Dame I've ever seen. And the song has stuck with me, and I've been working on it in my spare time as something else to do here. So I wanted to share that with everyone. It's Out There from Hunchback.
Okay, here we go. Billy, you're on.
All right, let me get my technology in gear here.
Oh, yeah, I know. We make everybody have to do their home studio.
It's true.
Good. All right, I'll let you focus.
Safe behind these windows and these parapets of stone, gazing at the people down below me. All my life I watch them as I hide up here alone, hungry for the history they've shown me. All my life I memorize their faces, knowing them as they will never know me. All my life I wonder how it feels to pass the day not above them, but part of them, and out there living in the sun. Give me one day out there, all I ask is one, to hold forever out there, where they all live. I know where what I'd give, what I dare, just to live one day out there. Out there among the millers and the weavers and their wives, through the roofs and gables as I can see them. Every day they shout and scold and go about their lives, heedless of the gift it is to be them. If I were in their skin, I'd treasure every instant out there, strolling by the sand, chase the morning out there, like ordinary men who freely walk about there, just one day, and then I swear I'll be content with my share. Won't resent, won't despair, old and bent, I won't care. I'll have it spent one day out there.
Woo! Applause. There is thunderous applause all over the internet for you. We look through the comments. People are like, that is the best voice ever. We love Billy. There's all sorts of people showering some love for you. Thank you, Billy. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule in New York and Washington Heights and being back. And we'll hopefully have you back soon and on a stage with a live audience where it really works. Any well wishes or thoughts before we let you go?
No, I just want to say thank you, guys. It's been fun. Richard Thomas is one of my favorite actors, and my mother watches him every day on the Waltons, so she's thrilled right now that she's on her phone watching, and I love that.
That's great.
But yeah, no, just guys, everybody stay safe and have a wonderful COVID season. Let's get through this together.
Let's get it. Peace be with you, my friend.
You too.
Be safe. All right.
Thank you.
Hey, I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank my guests, Richard Thomas, Olivia O'Connor, and Billy Mason. I want to throw out a few credits, if I might. Our theme music is written by Adam Overett. Becca, Sid, and Steph are doing the graphics and doing all the behind-the-scenes things. And I hope that you enjoyed your time with us today for your cocktail and conversation. Please tell your friends. You can rewatch this show on Facebook at the Pittsburgh CLO page or on YouTube, or you can visit pittsburghclo.org and look for close-ups and see archives of the past episodes. Next week's show, I'm excited to welcome Tony winner and CLO alum Beth Level and local Pittsburgh performer Chris Latta, who many of you probably saw in the Pittsburgh CLO Cara Cabaret series production of The Book of Merman. Before I go, though, I do want to take a moment and share one more thing with you. My personal commitment to CLO is not a job. For me, it's a calling. 6 years ago, I came to this city and discovered a magical place, not only the city, but the CLO. And from the very beginning, it captivated my heart. And I could not believe the support that this community gives to CLO, and that CLO does so much in our community. Some of you only know CLO because of the shows it does on the Benedum stage or at the CLO Cabaret. Some of you know us for the classes that we teach kids at the Academy, and some of you know us from being involved with the Gene Kelly Awards. But CLO touches many lives all year. And the current crisis is challenging, but we are working hard to keep our CLO alive and active in the community. But of course, I would say that it's my job as producing director. But don't take just my word for it. As we depart from one another today, let's hear from a wide range of supporters who shared their thoughts on CLO in this new video, which was actually narrated by our special guest, Richard Thomas. Again, I told you when we started, he was generous of spirit, and he wanted to help share this CLO magic with the world. So before we go, and before you see the video, it's Mark Fleischer with Pittsburgh CLO, hoping that your cocktails are tasty and your conversations are always interesting. Have a good evening.
Pittsburgh CLO is a nonprofit professional theater company based in the cultural district of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Since 1946, we have been dedicated to the preservation, creation, and promotion of live musical theater. And along the way, we've touched thousands of lives.
The CLO to me, more than anything else, means keeping alive for each successive generation the fabulous tradition of musical theater.
I just know I'm going to be entertained. I'm going to love it. It's just going to be a great time.
And it's unique in that I don't know that there are many across the country that have this breadth and scope of all of the initiatives that this organization brings forth.
Through its professional productions and education programs, the CLO has made a lasting impact on our community. The CLO stage has served as a training ground for thousands of performers, stage managers, and directors, launching the careers of industry professionals everywhere.
It takes a village to create a show. Not only is the CLO employing the actors, there's a huge amount of people that are involved behind the scenes.
I've worked for the CLO for 13 and a half years now in many different capacities. It has really, truly given me a purpose in life.
Through our 6 educational programs, we offer professional caliber performing arts training, reduced cost tickets for students, extensive scholarship awards, and special programs for our community partners.
I received the scholarship to do tap, ballet, jazz, singing, and acting.
She has made so many friends here. She has learned so many life lessons.
CLO has changed my life because I've made a lot of friends here, and just being able to come here and talk to them and hang out with them between classes, that's been really fun.
The CLO really gave me the opportunity to step into someone else's shoes, no matter what I look like, didn't matter the color of my skin, the color of my hair, and it really gave me a lot of encouragement for a future in this career.
I was on the stage with all my friends, and it made me very excited. When I come to CLO, my friends are so very nice and friendly to me.
The CLO produces the nation's longest-running showcase for young talent, the Gene Kelly Awards, honoring the best in high school musical theater.
Seeing the joy and excitement that these kids get by participating in the Kellys is just outstanding, and it makes them work harder. It helps them learn so much. There's incredible scholarship opportunities.
Without that scholarship, I probably couldn't train here. Totally changed my life. It straight up got me into college. That definitely was the most important moment of my life.
CLO is proud to be an important part of Pittsburgh's vibrant arts community, and through its donors and volunteers, provides opportunities for the public to experience and become involved in the power and joy of live performance.
I support Pittsburgh CLO because anything we can do here in Pittsburgh to bring a new connection to a child to musical theater and an adult to musical theater is going to benefit everybody in the long run.
What makes CLO different is its reach. It has the power to reach so many corners of the country. CLO has the ability to cultivate and curate shows here in Pittsburgh that have a life outside
We want to see this thing continue to thrive, continue to impact the community in the fashion that it does.
I support the CLO because I love it. We have brought Broadway to Pittsburgh.
CLO is a place where you can be inspired. It's a place where your creativity can flourish. It's a place where you can find your voice. CLO is a place for everyone, a family, and there is a place for you.
Without the CLO, Pittsburgh wouldn't be the same place and we wouldn't be the same people. The streets that we're on, where we are right now, the whole cultural district, wouldn't have the same life in the summer without it.
Without the CLO, Pittsburgh would be a few years behind artistically than where we are right now.
Pittsburgh would be empty without the CLO.
It would be less of a city without the CLO.
It's changed my life, and I can't imagine what I would be doing right now without being here, and it's just really amazing. I love it.